Welcome to the RSI Trade of the Day. My name is Benjamin Poole, head trader here at Verified Investing. I've got a lot of stuff to talk about. Normally, well, at least in the last couple weeks, when I've talked about these stocks that have been that are on my radar, I've been talking about the relative strength index staying above the 30, getting into the 70, and staying elevated for an extended period of time, actually all day without piercing the 30. Well, yesterday in the markets, we had this nice sell-off and it continued to float down. And so my trade of the day is actually going to be a long. So those of you guys who don't short, here is your opportunity. But before we do that, let's go ahead and just dive into the trade of the day on Tempest AI. It never hit our target, but had a good pullback and is continuing to fall. So this is just kind of the stuff that I look for and gives me an idea that, all right, so maybe we're oversold or overbought for an extended period of time, full day, and then we can get a pullback. All right, so let's go ahead and again, let's recap that, get trade. So here's a chart of Tempest AI. So I mentioned that this RSI had stayed extremely elevated the day before. I had an upside target for a shorting opportunity at $81.95. It got decently close to that. It was about 4%. And a stock like Tempest AI, as a smaller company, I was anticipating a nice surge up into this resistance level before a pullback. But then, as you can see what happened, we got a 5% pullback within the first, 30 minutes of the open. And then look at this, just a continued sell-off. Even when price action got, or the RSI got above the 70, the sentiment had flipped from being bullish, where the relative strength index was staying high, where the price action, this was bearish, and so the price action stayed lower. All right, so let me go ahead and take off the moving averages for you guys and the VWAP, give you a little bit more information. Okay, so this is what I look for when I look at stocks. So the next thing I'm going to go into is Nvidia. Nvidia got beaten up pretty well yesterday, and what I liked about the chart from yesterday, I'm going to go ahead and take off extended trading hours, make it a little cleaner. Look at what happened. Price action got a little bit of a bounce towards the middle part of the day, around 1 o'clock. But still, the relative strength index never got above the 30. Early part of the morning, got this nice flush off. After it broke this upswing parallel channel on the 19th of August, look at this, just to continue to float down. So just like above, when we're looking at stocks that are staying elevated, we look at the relative strength index and see about where it's trading. So if there's relatively low volatility and it just continually stays above the 70, or you can anticipate at least somewhat of a stronger stock for the day. Now, it could turn around the 1 o'clock time frame if the institutions decide they want to turn off their buy program, or in this case, turn off their buy program and let this float down. And that's kind of what happened with Nvidia, right? So broke this upswing parallel channel on the daily time frame, just a pretty slow float down. I know it looks on the 1 minute time frame, it looks like a big float, a big move to the downside, but really that's a 2% move. Brought the relative strength index below 30, continued up, up, up. But again, once the volatility dries out in a stock like Nvidia, then the relative strength index levels out and then heads higher, heads lower. And that's exactly what price action does. So if you are bullish on Nvidia, what you want to do is say, all right, well, this was oversold all day yesterday. Not a tremendous move down. So where would our next support level be? All right, we broke this upswing parallel channel. So our next level of support, it looks like pre-market is a 176.18. However, you've got this gap fill at 173. So I'm not going to be playing this for the trade of the day. However, 173.72 is going to be a lot of support once it gets down in there. And based on the fact that it had been oversold pretty much all day, you can expect continuation of that movement before an expected bounce. So again, 173.72 is where I would be looking for a long position on Nvidia. Plus, if you look at the daily RSI, it's starting to get close to the 50 on a relatively strong stock. And so if it gets down to about 45 or even into the 40s, you can anticipate a pretty solid bounce as well. All right, so SMCI, similar price action with what happened with Nvidia. So I'm going to go ahead and take on, go to regular trading hours. Big float down all day. And SMCI has been one of those stocks that, as you can see on the daily time frame, has been beaten up after you made this run up after, I think this was after earnings. But look at this, just a slow float down. The relative strength index never gets above the 70 into since the 18th, since 130. But this slow float, slow grind down. So my level of support is $42.84. So then we got to say, all right, well, where could the potential downside be for SMCI? Based on the fact that it was oversold intraday. So you got this gap fill. I believe it already kissed this gap fill or hit this gap fill at $42.84. I do not anticipate it going all the way down 4% to $40.89. But if you're a bull on SMCI, then this would be my first level for a potential bounce, and this would be my second level where at this gap fill at $40.89. So overall, it's telling me that there's still a weak stock. It has potential to continually move down, and this would be a major level of support for me at $40.89 for SMCI. All right. Let's go into SYS. SYS is one of the strong stocks on the morning session. So you had this nice down move. It did pierce the 30, but because it wasn't a huge move, 5% on a $10 stock, that's not a significant move for me. And then look at this. You had this big pop up and then sideways consolidation. Let's go ahead and get rid of the VWAP for you. With the relative strength index staying above the 30. I mean, you pierced it a little bit, but again, lack of price action. So I do anticipate a move higher on SSYS before an eventual pullback. So for me, I would be looking for a price to head up to $11.30. Although you are going to be facing some resistance at this $11 even number, whole round number pierce for SSYS. All right. I don't know. I have. Okay. Let's go into Bitcoin dominance and Bitcoin. So Bitcoin dominance has this beautiful upsloping parallel channel. This is a daily time frame on the relative strength index. So you've got a move that's a low pivot here. And this was the lowest point on the relative strength index. I love to see this, especially when the relative strength index makes a higher high and the price action makes a lower high. This gives us an idea that, all right, so the relative strength index is giving us positive RSI divergence at the lower end of this upsloping parallel channel. Although it does look like it tried to break out. If it recaptured this, then the price of Bitcoin and the altcoins are going to fall and the Bitcoin dominance is going to rise. All right, so keep an eye on BTC. So here's a chart of Bitcoin. A couple things I'm looking at is you have this break of this upsloping trend line, and this gives me further confirmation. It's not a guarantee. So anything that I go over, there's no 100% guarantees. I'm just seeing what I see in the charts based on the relative strength index, based on upsloping trend lines, support, resistance levels. And so when those things kind of align together, it gives you more confidence in a potential direction. So for Bitcoin, for example, Bitcoin dominance, for example, has that upsloping parallel channel that is hitting the lower end. Bitcoin just broke this upsloping trend line. So the Bitcoin dominance chart can decrease a little bit as Bitcoin heads back up to what's known as the scene of the crime. So if it gets back to right around 118, 119,000, and this would be bearish for Bitcoin because it's a retrace of the scene of the crime. Unless it recaptures this, it favors a move to the downside. We're targeting around 105,000. The thing that I was noticing on the relative strength index is you're getting this negative RSI divergence on Bitcoin. And this is what caused or helped cause the move down. Now, what I would be looking for is what this relative strength index or what this price action does. So if we start moving up slowly, but the relative strength index fails to recapture this, then it could be putting in a bear flag for more potential downside. And again, going back to the Bitcoin dominance, if that's the case, hold on, BTC. If that's the case, if Bitcoin decides it wants to head higher, then Bitcoin dominance is going to head lower. And you're looking for about a 45% or 65%, 64% of Bitcoin to be having the market cap for Bitcoin dominance. Okay, so just a couple of interesting things on Bitcoin dominance on a daily time frame. And now let's go ahead and go into the trade of the day. I don't know what happened. My little zingers went away. I'm not sure why. Awesome. Thank you. Trade of the day. All right, here we go. We're going to go over Palantir. Here's a chart of Palantir. I gave you guys my upside potential, max upside based on this upswing trend line at $190.05, based on the fact that the relative strength index on the daily time frame was where it was at. And look at that, it hit it. So go back and look, man. I mean, I pretty much called to the penny the exact top on Palantir. Doesn't happen often. I'm wrong a lot, but this was a case that I was correct. So it's fun to have that on there. So this Palantir trade, it's piercing below this gap fill on Palantir. The chart, and I'll go in the 1 minute time frame, go to regular trading hours. Similar to what happened to Nvidia, you had this down move. Look at this price consolidation right underneath this downsloping trend line. The relative strength index stayed below the 70. So I anticipated a move to the downside. So now, because this gap fill is already played out, my initial target, I'm going long on Palantir at 151.06. This is a nice pivot point for me to take a long trade, and you have additional confluence where it's $149.74. You've got this wide range green bar candle. If it starts closing below this, it could get down to $148.22, this low pivot. If it starts closing below there, Palantir is heading much, much lower. So for the trade of the day, I would actually just say, all right, so $151.06 is my entry price. If it hits there, that is my entry. And if it closes below that point on a 15-minute closing basis, then it's stopped out. That trade's done. If you want to try to dollar cost average and hit the 149.74 and then add again at 148.22, you can do that. But excuse me, but for my trade of the day, it's going to be a stop out at a 15-minute closing basis below our entry point at $151.06. So that's what I have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you guys. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Ring that bell so you can get notified at 8:45 in the morning. And then if you guys want something specific on the trade of the day, if you want to look at relative strength index on the daily time frame or the 4-hour or whatever, you want me to go over that with you guys, let me know. Drop a link in the comments or drop a stock ticker or an altcoin ticker into the comments, and I will be happy to get to it in the next couple of days. And then please stay tuned. Gareth Soloway goes live at 9 a.m. So that's less than 2 minutes. So we'll see you guys next time in the charts. Thanks. Take care.